Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Mark Janish. This is the January 4th, Thursday edition, 2018 of the From the Bench podcast. I'm your host, Mark Janish. You can find the From the Bench podcast on Libsyn, Stitcher, Radio, and AccessMediaGlobal.com. Tonight's podcast is going to be very NCAA heavy. Wanted to go ahead and just start off on a national level tonight before we get to some local hoops with the local mid-major UC Santa Barbara opening Big West play against Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, 60 miles north of Santa Barbara in San Luis Obispo County. We're going to start off tonight with the Michigan State Spartans. They're hosting Maryland in a Big Ten conference game. That game can be seen on Fox Sports 1, beginning at 8 o'clock Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. And then following that, on the West Coast, you'll be seeing UCLA and Stanford as a follow-up to the number one Michigan State Spartans hosting Maryland in Big Ten action. The game is going to be on FS1 with Gus Johnson and Bill Rafferty serving as color analysts. The Spartan Radio Network can be heard radio call can be heard on 38 affiliates and on the web at SpartanSportsNetwork.com with Will Tinneman handling play-by-play and Matt Stagina serving as the color analyst. The game can also be heard on Sirius XM and Internet Channel 84. The Spartans are winners of 13 games in a row. They improved to 14-1 with a 108-52 win over Savannah State on Sunday at the Breslin Center. It was the fourth straight game that Michigan State has scored at least 100 points, and that's the first time in program history that has happened for the team. Michigan State is ranked number one in both polls, as far as the Associated Press and USA Today coaches polls. That's the first time Michigan State has been ranked number one in the national polls since 2015-16, during the regular season when the Spartans held the top spot for about 4 weeks. This is just the fifth time in school history, and the fourth time under head coach Tom Izzo, and the 12th week overall that MSU has held the top spot in the AP Top 25. Sophomore forward Nick Ward was named Big Ten Player of the Week earlier this week. It's the second straight week a Spartans player has been named to the league Player of the Week for the Big Ten, following sophomore guard forward Miles Bridges, who earned the honor on December 26. In 2 games last week, Ward averaged 21.5 points and 12.5 rebounds in 20 minutes of play as he went 16 for 17 from the line from the field, connecting on 91% of his shots. He tied his season high in points, 22, and rebounds, 15, in a 111-61 win over Cleveland State, and followed that up with a perfect 9 for 9 from the floor en route to 21 points in a 108-52 win against Savannah State, which I mentioned earlier. Miles Bridges leads Michigan State with a 17-point and 8 rebound per game average, while adding 3 assists and about 1 block per game. He ranks 7th in the league in assists, and he ranks number 1 in the league in scoring. One of 5 players scoring in double figures for the Spartans. Mr. Ward, Nick Ward, is second with 15.4 points and second on the team with 7.5 rebounds. He ranks first in the Big Ten and number 3 nationally, connecting on 72.1% of his field goals. Sophomore Joshua Langford is scoring at a 14.1 point per game clip, while sophomore guard Cassius Winston, a guy who I actually like a lot, is fourth with 13.1 points per game. So as we move forward, Michigan State leads the all-time series with Maryland 6-5, and the Spartans have won 3 of the last 4 games against the Terrapins. The 2 teams have met just twice in East Lansing, with each team taking 1 game each. Maryland enters the game Thursday night with a 13-3 record and a 2-1 mark in the Big Ten Conference, following a 75-69 win over Penn State at home on Wednesday nights. The Terrapins had won 7 straight games, and after losing consecutive games to Syracuse 72-70, and its conference opener, it lost to Purdue at an 80-75 score. Sophomore guard Anthony Cowan leads the team in scoring with 15.6 points per game and 4.5 assists per game. He also is third on the team with 5 rebounds. So sophomore forward Kevin Herter is second on the team with 14.1 points per game scoring, and second with just over 5 rebounds a game. And Herter has a game-high 39 3-point field goals. So that's the game of the evening nationally. Like I said, that's going to start very soon here, probably in the next 90 minutes. 5 o'clock Pacific time, FS1, 8 o'clock Eastern time, Eastern time zone of the United States. Check your local cable and satellite listings. And also tonight we're going to have some audio for you. I'm going to set that up here after the podcast. The local mid-major UC Santa Barbara Gauchos travels to Mott Center in San Luis Obispo, Mott Gymnasium in San Luis Obispo, for their opener of Big West play. The Gauchos are 11-3. The losses that I felt a little bit of concern with defensively, they lost to USC 98-87 and couldn't get a stop for their lives. That may be the Achilles heel of this team, but we will definitely see under first-year coach Joe Pasternak. The 11-3 start for Joe Pasternak is the best start for UC Santa Barbara since 2007 and 2008 season, when it began the year with a 12-2 record through 14 games. And that team actually ultimately set a record for 23 victories in 2016-17. This is definitely a far cry from the final year of the Bob Williams era, 6-22 last year for UC Santa Barbara. The January 6th game, University of California Riverside versus UC Santa Barbara, has been moved. Tip time has been moved from 7 p.m. Pacific to 9 p.m. to accommodate the ESPNU network. The ESPN family of networks will be having this game live from the Thunderdome at this particular point. So we want to go ahead and just encourage you to come out if you're anywhere near UC Santa Barbara. And there is an effort to get the crowd up. I think based on statistics that I've been looking at over the last couple of days, 1,386 patrons are coming through the turnstiles at the Thunderdome on the campus of UC Santa Barbara. UC Santa Barbara is 6-0 at home this year, and 4-3 on true road games, and 1-0 on a neutral court. So therefore, you have your 11-3 start. Joe Pasternak, as I said, is off to the best start in UC Santa Barbara coaching history. One of the good notes, and we'll be looking at the collegeinsider.com poll in just a few moments, but wanted to let you know that UCSB jumped 2 spots from 15 to 13 in the latest collegeinsider.com mid-major poll, and the Gauchos debuted in the poll at 21 3 weeks ago. They dropped to 22 last week. They were at number 15. The only other 4 West Coast schools in the poll are all from the West Coast Conference. That was one point that I will be making later, is that Gonzaga, St. Mary's of Moraga, California, Gonzaga of Spokane, Washington, and Mark Few fame, number 2, BYU, and then, of course, San Diego, which UC Santa Barbara defeated 67-57, is number 19, and UCSB defeated them on December 2nd. The Gauchos, as I've said many, many times this year, have been picked to finish 6th in the Big West Conference. and we will soon see if the media types, the Big West Conference, have picked that correctly or not. The annual media poll was held in November, and the Gauchos got one first place vote. UC Irvine, UC Davis, and Cal State Fullerton, and Long Beach State and Hawaii were picked ahead of the Gauchos. And Max Heidegger, the super sophomore, 6'2", a little bit undersized. If he was not as undersized, he would definitely be at a more high-profile, prestigious D1 school, in my opinion. But look for him tonight to score a fair amount of points. He's been leading the Gauchos with a 22.1 average. I want to also let you know that Leland King II, 7 double-doubles on the year. That's a graduate transfer from Nevada. And then, of course, the Gauchos are also led by Marcus Jackson, who had 13 points at Sacramento State a couple of games ago. And that was the most since he had 16 in his debut on November 20th of last year. So, graduate transfer from Rice University, that's Marcus Jackson. The senior, Gabe Vincent, coming off a difficult knee injury, which limited his playing time last year. The senior is averaging 10.4 points per game. There's 4 folks in double figures here. Leland King, Max Heidegger, Gabe Vincent, and Jalen Canty. Jalen Canty's a 6'8". He plays a stretch 4 or 5, and he had 10 points and 10 boards with versus Pacific Union, an NAIA school. His 4th double-double of the year, and the NAIA school, Pacific Union, out of Napa, California, wine country in Northern California. So, moving on, we just want to highlight some more what UCSB has been doing. The season last year, they only averaged 60.8 points a game, shot terribly, couldn't throw a pea in the ocean, couldn't hit the side of a barn, for lack of a better term. UCSB is now leading the Big West Conference in scoring with an average of 78.9 points per game. The Gauchos have scored 91, 87, 87, 82, and 81 in the last 5 games, a total of 428 for an average of 85.6 points per game. Through 3 games this year, they were averaging 70.7 points per game, but in the last 11 contests, they have scored 892 points, an average of 81.1. So we're definitely looking at UCSB not having any problem putting the ball in the basket. My issue with the Gauchos will be defense. UCSB enters Thursday's game with 4 players averaging in double figures. That would be Max Heidegger, 22.1, followed by Leland King, the transfer from Nevada, 17.1 points per game. Jalen Canty, 11.6 points per game. And Gabe Vincent, 10.4 points per game. Should be noted that Jalen Canty, along with Gabe Vincent, who missed time due to injury, Jalen Canty had some academic problems and was limited in his time on the court, but hopefully he's righted the ship in that respect, and we're looking for a good opening of the season for them. Statistically, for the Gauchos in the Big West Conference, they're first in scoring at 78.9 points per game. They give up 71.4 points per game. That's 6th in the conference. The scoring margin is plus 7.5, so they're actually outscoring their opponents by that 7.5. They are first in field goal percentage at 47.7%. They could stand a little help from the free throw line. One of the issues that I had with the Gauchos early in the season was a loss at Pitt. They could have beat the Pitt Panthers on the road, but they were like 10 of 22 from the charity stripe. So they lost an opportunity to win a close game. Of course, Texas A&M was a definite blowout. They would have never recovered from that if you listened to that game. And I'll have the audio for you on accessmediaglobal.com. You can also go to my on-air page, click on ucsbgauchos.com. But I'll have a game story and the audio for you tonight. The pregame is at 6:45, and then 7 p.m. will be tip-off from San Luis Obispo, California. Joe Calero, 5-9 squad, coming to play UC Santa Barbara in their home opener in San Luis Obispo. The free throws percentage, as I mentioned, 67.3% so far. That's sixth in the Big West Conference. They are first in percentage three-point field goals. They're making 39% of their field goals. Their field goal percentage defense is 42.7%. That's fifth in the 19 Big West Conference. The defense against the three-point field goal is 34.4%. That's fourth in the conference. Three-point field goals, they're averaging 8.2 per game, and that's second in the Big West. The rebound margin, 3.6. They're on a plus side, 3.6 per game, out-rebounding their opponents by about 4 rebounds, it looks like. And then, of course, block shots, there's 4.4. They average about 4.4 a game. So 4 blocks, and that is statistically second in the conference. So I wanted to go ahead and just share that with you. Excuse me. We've given you opportunity and discuss Michigan State, Maryland coming up tonight, giving you the information that you need to go to enjoy that game. Wanted to also touch on the collegeinsider.com mid-major poll. I have a copy of the poll in front of me here. Just want to go through it really quickly. The top 25. The Bulldogs of Gonzaga, 12-3 out of the West Coast Conference. This is West Coast Conference heavy. Also wanted to just let you know that these let's see. I'm not going to share that. Okay. Just want to go over the poll really quickly. We're going to go over the mid-major top 25. UCSB is at number 13. They started at 15. I've detailed that for you earlier in the podcast. Welcome to those of you listening by Stitcher Radio and Libsyn. Happy you're along on this edition of the From the Bench podcast. I'm Mark Janish, proprietor and founder of AccessMediaGlobal.com. Hopefully you're enjoying the podcast. You can enjoy any and all episodes of the podcast on Libsyn and Stitcher Radio, should you choose. Like the program, rate it. If you're happy with the presentation, then let us know. You're always welcome to go to the contact page at AccessMediaGlobal.com. I'm on Twitter, Mark Janish, Janisch, at Access. Mark at Access. Excuse me. Mark at Access Media. All right. Going to the poll now, as I promised. Gonzaga, Mark Few and the Gonzaga Bulldogs out of the West Coast Conference, ranked number 1. The St. Mary's Gales out of Moraga, California, 13-2. Followed by Charleston, 10-3. Albany, New Mexico State, and BYU at 5-6. Loyola of Chicago, 11-3. Out of the Missouri Valley Conference, there at number 7. Louisiana, 12-3 out of the Sun Belt Conference. Missouri State at 9. South Dakota at 10. Furman at 11. Stephen F. Austin at 12. Out of the Southland Conference, obviously. UC Santa Barbara out of the Big West Conference. Towson, always pretty much over the last at least 5 to 6 years, making an appearance or very close to it in the NCAA playoffs, the March Madness type scenario for Towson. They're at 14. South Dakota State at 15. Eastern Tennessee State University, 10-4. They're at number 16. UT Arlington out of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, 9-6 out of the Sun Belt Conference. They've actually slipped from 8 to 17. Wofford another school that we definitely see during March Madness time. 8-5 out of the Southern Conference. They've actually slipped a couple of spots from 16 to 18. Following that up with another representative out of the West Coast Conference, San Diego. San Diego's at number 19, 11-3. And then UNC Greensboro, 10-4. They got 151 points as far as votes, first, second, third, fourth, etc. 10-4 for UNC Greensboro. Ball State at 21. Central Michigan, 11-2 at number 22. Number 23, Georgia Southern, 10-5 out of the Sun Belt Conference. Murray State, the Racers, 10-3, ranked number 24. And bringing up the final spot at number 25 is Northern Colorado. All right, folks. I hope you've enjoyed this version of the podcast. We'll definitely be looking into some NFL stuff. Probably tomorrow. I'm going to look at some games tomorrow on the podcast. I want to also just give you a little bit of a view of the AP Top 25. We mentioned the Spartans of Michigan State playing Maryland. Duke at number 2. The only loss for Michigan State was an early season loss against Duke and Mike Krzyzewski. Villanova at number 3. Arizona State at number 4 this week. Number 5, Xavier. Number 6, West Virginia. Number 7, Oklahoma. Number 8, Virginia. Number 9, the Shockers of Wichita State. Number 10, Kansas. Number 11, Texas A&M. The University of North Carolina. The Tar Heels at 12. Purdue, the Boilermakers at 13. Arizona out of the Pac-12 at number 14. 15 is the University of Miami. 16 is TCU. 17 is Kentucky. 18 is Texas Tech. And I'll stop at 19 with Gonzaga making another appearance in the top 25. All right, well, we're going to review the top 25 as the league gets started. Want to thank everyone for listening. This is the From the Bench podcast. I'm Mark Janish. You can go ahead and go to accessmediaglobal.com. You can enjoy all the new upgraded pages with RSS feeds for soccer, NHL, NFL. Matter of fact, I'm looking to add an international feed and some NFL feeds. But if you have any other questions regarding the Power 5 conferences, the SEC, the ACC, Pac-12, and so forth, you can go to Mark's Favorites on the football page. That's me, Mark Janish. I'm your host for this podcast and all other podcasts. It's been a pleasure to be with you today. Thanks for listening over Stitcher and Libsyn. God bless you. God keep you. And may we meet again and come together tomorrow for some NFL wild card evaluations and analysis for this week. Looking for the Rams and the Falcons on Saturday night, and also the Kansas City Chiefs and the Tennessee Titans. We'll see how Marcus Mariota does as he gets into the playoffs and makes his debut. So with that, until tomorrow, I'm Mark Janish. Thanks for listening. God bless you. God keep you. I'm out for accessmediaglobal.com, the From the Bench podcast. This has been the January 4th, Thursday night edition of the From the Bench podcast. Thanks for listening and good night, everyone.